Let's talk about my worst books of the year. I am someone who does like to discuss these, as I'm also someone who will read people's worst books of the year and find my favorite book. So I like to kind of go through and say what I didn't like in a book, and either you're going to agree with me and then you're not going to read that book, or you're going to disagree with me and you're going to absolutely love that book. And I think either way is a benefit to a reader. And I feel like if there's one thing you can truly count on over on my channel is that I'm going to be honest, and I will tell you when I don't like a book. I actually had a pretty good reading year. We're actually just going to go through all my 2s and 1 stars. I think there's less than 20, and a lot of the 2 stars are just books that I was bored in. There's nothing inherently wrong with them or anything like that. I normally have a lot more 1 stars. So I had a good year. I learned to DNF this year, which really helped me. Let's start off with the 2 stars, and in January I read Divine Rivals, and I did not like this. I thought this was really boring. I know a lot of people who loved it. It was blowing up everywhere. Like, I am the unpopular opinion here. Everyone was loving this. This was like the book talk sensation. I read it for Book to Wear Favorites last year, and I just felt like it was boring. I thought the world building was interesting, but it didn't dive deep enough into it. I feel like this is the fantasy romance for romance readers, and as a fantasy reader, I felt like the fantasy side was really lacking. I also really didn't love the romance. It is told everywhere that it's rivals to lovers, but they're rivals for like 2 chapters, and then they're just lovers in my opinion. I felt like the story was flat. I love that other people love it, and I'm sad that it didn't work for me because I always love when I'm in the know. Like, I love when I'm part of the hype. I love that so much. I love loving books. But in all honesty, I didn't like this book. Right after I read Divine Rivals, I read The Foxglove King, and I also didn't love this one. Honestly, I don't remember a single thing about this book. I can't even tell you why I didn't like it because it's just left my brain. I feel like that's gonna happen on a couple of these. I remember just not being engaged in this. I remember feeling like this story was boring. There wasn't anything wrong with it. I just didn't engage into the story, and I think you can see that by the lack of any thoughts I have about it. Then I also read My Heart is a Chainsaw, which I liked for a long time. I liked elements of the story. I really liked the concept of the horror genre and this discussion on the horror genre, and I think that if I remember correctly, there's like mixed media, and I think I really liked the mixed media part of this, her like essays on what a slasher is and things like that. However, I just feel like this didn't have enough action. I felt like it was far too long and left me bored and wanting more. I think I was picturing a lot more slashing than this story has, a lot more tension, a lot more feeling like my heart is beating out of my chest than this is. This is more just a literary story. It's like a lot more about what the story is saying than what is actually happening in the story, and I have found that my horror taste is a lot more action than this book really is. So I understand why a lot of people like this. I also don't love Stephen Graham-Jones' writing style. I have tried a few from him. I keep trying more, hoping that I like it, but there's something about it. I think it's because it's not as action-packed that I don't love it. Every time I go into a book, I'm wanting something other than what his book is giving, and I think that's a me problem, not a him problem, because he's put out books time and time again that I've read and realized that they're like this and not like this, so why do I keep expecting them to be like this, you know? Very unfair of me to do to the author. After that, I read Never Die, and I'm so sad by this because I loved Pawn's Gambit by the same author. Rob J. Hayes is one of my favorite fantasy authors currently. I have literally loved his stuff so much. Like, Along the Razor's Edge is some of my favorite series to ever exist. I love those characters. I felt like the characters in this felt flat. I also felt like this was really just a repeat of Pawn's Gambit. Never Die, Pawn's Gambit, and Spirits of Vengeance are all a series of companion novels, and they're standalones, and they're kind of repetitive of each other. They're just like different characters in different places in the world, and I just liked the way Pawn's Gambit was done so much more. Never Die was so drawn out. It felt long. I wasn't engaged into the story. I felt like it was very repetitive as it went, and it also repeated to Pawn's Gambit. I think if I had read Never Die first, I could have liked it a little bit more. Then we have Such Sharp Teeth by Rachel Harrison. This was the first book of Rachel Harrison's I had read after I loved Black Sheep by her last year, and I was just, again, really expecting this to be a lot more action-driven and funny and comical and campy. Such Sharp Teeth follows a woman who is bitten by a werewolf, and she's turning into a werewolf, and the horror and terror she has as she realizes this. I think for me, it would have worked better if the character hadn't 100% known a werewolf bit her, and we were like not sure whether we should believe her. Like, is she imagining these symptoms? Are they something else? But since we knew 100% she was bitten by a werewolf, the terror didn't really get to me as much as it should have. Like, her like, am I not? Like, I never believed the wishy-washy because we saw the werewolf scene. So I just think that this didn't really work for me in terms of that. I expected something different. Again, I think that that is a thing that I can say about a lot of the books that I didn't love, because I don't pick up books intentionally knowing I'm not going to love them, intentionally thinking that there's something that I'm not going to enjoy. So yeah, definitely for this one, I just think it was a case of this being a little more literary horror than I personally enjoy. Again, I like more action. Next up, we have Candy King Kills, which is a slasher, and Interesting enough, this has the opposite problem that all the other horrors had. This was too fast-paced. I typically like my slashers to have discussions on things. I love when politics are involved in them, or like conspiracies, and we're having like a really in-depth discussion through the killing or the murderer. And this is pretty much just like fun kills. It's kill after kill after kill. I feel like I didn't have time to connect to the characters once the killing started. Yes, the killing doesn't start for very long, but it is a very short book. I think I needed more time to breathe with the characters to experience their life. I really just wanted a little bit more depth to the story than there is. It is fun kills. If you're just in it for a slasher for fun kills, I think that this is a really good one. It's got so many good kills in it, but for me, I just think it missed the mark. After that, we have When the Moon Hatched, which is a beloved romantasy. I didn't love the writing style in this. I hated the amnesia trope. The amnesia trope is something I do not like. It just makes it so hard for me to get behind a character, because if a character doesn't understand its own motivations, how am I supposed to understand your motivations? I just feel like characters doing something because innately they feel like they should be doing it just doesn't work for me. I need to understand a little bit more. This book was far too long. The writing style did not work for me. I hated that things weren't well explained. There was a glossary and you had to look back at the glossary in order to understand what words meant, which like I get it, because in a world, all the characters are going to understand what those words mean, so it shouldn't have to be explained to them, but the reader doesn't explain it, and I read for fun and I don't want to have to flip to a glossary. That reminds me of school and I hate that. So like I just wish things were a little bit better explained within the story, especially because of how wordy she is and how she explained little things that didn't matter. I was just like, can I get more explanations for the magic system, for the dragons, for things that matter, for these words that are not common sense to me? Since then, I have just realized that this author is not an author for me. I just don't like their writing style. You will see a little foreshadowing here for later on in the video, but that is something that I didn't love, but everyone loves it. It's a romantasy about two characters that fall in love, you know? There's fantasy plot too. 2, Shape a Dragon's Breath. This book has also left me. I think, again, this was a story that had very, very good commentary, but not enough action for me. Was really beautiful discussion on Indigenous culture and how us white people take over the world and we're rude and terrible people and the things we do to them, and how we just expect everyone to assimilate to us. And when a character doesn't want to assimilate, or like the struggles they have of new generations that are losing their culture, but like the culture is such a big thing and that shouldn't happen, and things like that. And I think that this story really, really did all of that really, really well, but I read for enjoyment and I found myself bored by the actual like plot in this story. I wanted a little bit more faster pace. I am a fast-paced reader. I like a medium to fast-paced story. Slow stories typically don't work for me. I don't like traveling stories for that. I really need a decent amount of action and plot happening within my stories to carry me forward, and this one I just felt like was missing a lot of that, but the commentary was so good on it. Then I read The Missing, and I don't remember why I didn't like this book, to be honest. Oh, I think it's because everything happened too fast. 2 ways that I don't like a story. Either not enough happened or too much happened. And I just remember wanting to sit with the killers a little bit. This is a thriller about these 5 people that are stuck on an island and they're told that they have to kill each other. The last one surviving will get off the island and be saved. They all just started doing things so quickly. I feel like everything happened very, very quickly. Everyone died. I wish we had seen a little bit more in their head, the like fear happening of like, I have to kill someone has to kill me, things like that. I just think that this was a little bit too fast-paced for me. Kingdom and Venom and Vows, which feels wrong to put on this list because overall I think I enjoyed that series, but I binged that entire series back to back and I just had the audiobook on, and I honestly just think that this last book was just pure smut and I missed the plot line a little bit, and I think that's why it didn't work for me. But honestly, I don't remember much. I remember having good vibes and thinking it was a really good like audiobook for while I was gaming, because I think I was playing Stardew Valley. This is when I learned that Stardew Valley existed, and I played it for literally 72 hours straight. I listened to 4 audiobooks back to back while playing it. I would be up all night, early up in the morning just to play it, and I was obsessed. Then we have A Deal with the Elf King, which just lacked any depth to me, especially after I had read and loved another one in this series, and I love Elise Kova's writing. I just couldn't connect, and I didn't love the romance in this. I thought the world building was intriguing, but the characters did not pull me forward enough in this. This is an arranged marriage where a female is sent to the Elf King in order to save the magic. Like anytime a female has magic, I believe that they're sent across. I could be remembering that wrong now, but there is a series of standalones within a world about saving magic, and they're all arranged marriages, and I felt like these people were just friends. I didn't really feel like they had any enemy aspect of them, which was trying to be portrayed in this. Then we have Flames of Chaos. I actually own this one because I still own book 2, and I actually do want to read book 2, which is really unhinged of me because I just remember the story being so unhinged and the plot being not great and the writing being very cringy. However, I think about these 2 characters, there's a few scenes I think about in this one. I really think it was was just the unhingedness of this that I could not take a single second of this book serious. They gave it 2 stars, that I was just like, what's the point in reading this, because I'm not engaged, because I'm just laughing at everything that happens, and I don't think I was supposed to be laughing. So yeah, this one was a 2 star, but I still own it because I would like to continue, and I don't know what that says about me, but you know, here we go. Then we have Nectar of the Wicked, which I hated too, and I don't remember why. This happens a lot, I think, especially in Romantasy, that I read really quickly. This was such an easy read. I read it in one day, listened to the audiobook, or else I think I would have DNF'd it because it just like read so quickly. I remember not buying into the romance in this, not buying into the world building or the characters. I thought that the smut in this was kind of cringy. I didn't love it. Other than that, what do I remember about this book? I don't know, but I remember everyone else loving it and me just being like, I don't see it. I don't get it. Am I missing something? There was just lack of chemistry, lack of, like, it's supposed to be a bully romance, but I don't think that there was any chemistry. Where I think a good bully romance, you see the chemistry as they're going at it, and the plot was very see-through in my opinion. Just my opinion. Next up we have The Lost of the Skies, which is a horror story, which is kind of a reimagining of Lord of the Flies. I didn't like Lord of the Flies, so I probably shouldn't have read this one, and I also didn't really like this one. These are following like a class of 5-year-olds who go on a field trip to the forest, and one of them kills their teacher, and then they're just left in the forest all by themselves to do whatever they want. The word bum is said a lot. Also, they're 5-year-olds, so they thought, oh, this tree is warm, let me sleep in this tree, and then a bear ate them. My lead. And there was no other thought other than that. They had 5-year-old thoughts. Sometimes I think that they were thinking too much that I don't think a 5-year-old would be able to do. However, most of the time I was like, I want more depth from the story than I'm getting, but how do you get more depth when they're 5-year-old main characters? I didn't like the way the POVs changed in this. The like writing itself really didn't work for me. Maybe for like Lord of the Flies, I would recommend it. I think it was really prominent that it is a Lord of the Flies reimagining, definitely inspired by that. If you're like me though and you don't like Lord of the Flies, stay clear of this one. Then we have The Hunted Heir, which is the sequel to The Veiled Kingdom. I read The Veiled Kingdom earlier this year. I gave it 4 stars. I actually really enjoyed it. The Hunted Heir had very much middle book syndrome for me. It was just following these 2 characters, and I just felt like our male MC flipped so quickly. The end of the first book, there is a pretty big cliffhanger, and there's some feelings that go unresolved, and those feelings only exist for about 10 pages in The Hunted Heir, and then he's a perfect simp for our female main character. And I want a man to simp, but I don't want you to switch like a light bulb, especially in a story like this where I need there to be conflict and a resolution later on. I felt like this was way too quick. It was way too short. It felt like it was rushed out in my opinion. Holly Renee seems to have her first books be the longest ones, and then they get shorter as they go. I personally think that your books should always get longer. I want more substance from every single book. I want more character growth, character dynamic, and I think that this book was really missing a lot of those for me. I'm still excited about the last book. I'm hoping I love it, but the second book was definitely a letdown. Then our last of the 2 stars, we have The Tenacious Tale of Tana the Tendersword, which I read for SBFBO 10, getting a lot of hate for my dislike of this book, not gonna lie. Reading is subjective, let's all remember that, and I'm judging a very, very subjective competition. It is clearly stated that it is subjective on the website. I did not think that this was middle grade done well. I thought it was a journey story that I didn't love. This essentially follows Tana and her companion, who's like a scribe, like writing down the story as she goes off on her first quest to become a Tendersword. She's essentially in class to become a Tendersword, which is like a hero, and at different ages they're given different tests, and she's on her first test, and we watch her go on a quest for it. It was like, okay, we have to go here to here, and this is going to be endpoint. Then we get to endpoint, and they'd be like, actually, this isn't the endpoint. We have to go here. Nothing would happen at this point. It would just be someone telling us that we were not at the right spot, and we had to go here. And then we get here, and it would be the same thing, that we have to go here. And I just needed every little stop in a journey to add character development, to add character dynamic. I also really disliked the word stupid being used in this. Tana describes other kids as stupid, and no one corrects her on it. She doesn't correct herself. She doesn't learn from her language. And for me, a middle grade story is teaching our next generation, and we should not be teaching them to call people stupid. We should be teaching them that even if you think someone is stupid, that you can learn and grow from that, and that they're not stupid, and that you're being a mean person. And I don't think a hero in a middle grade story should be a bad person. I personally didn't like that. I didn't care about the characters. They were very one-dimensional, and I read middle grade. Then that I loved. I didn't love this middle grade. Even though I'm not a middle grade reader, and I will be very clear about that, I didn't think this was middle grade done well. My personal opinion, I always say everything is my own personal opinion. No book is ever bad. Trust me, I dislike a lot of popular books, and I love a lot of unpopular books. No book is ever bad. It's all subjective to everyone's taste, but these are my opinions. That's all. Let's get into the 1 stars, and we can remember what I just said. Because no book is ever bad. It's just my personal opinion. And that's all I can come from when I review a book, is my personal interests, my personal likes, my personal dislikes, and how I connect to a story, the plot, the characters, the writing, all of that. I have no technical training. I'm just a book reviewer. My 2 1 stars of the year. First one was Slaying the Frost King, which is in the Slaying series. I wanted to complete this entire series this year, and then I read Slaying the Shifter Prince and Slaying the Shadow Prince and loved them both. And then I read the Frost King and absolutely hated that. And then I just derailed myself from reading the last book, the Naga King. And I don't know if I ever will, because like I hated Frost King quite a bit. World building made no sense. The story ends and we don't even get a resolution to the plot, which really annoyed me. It's like the romance ended, so the story ended, but there is still so much in the plot left. Not that I really cared enough to continue, and I'm glad it didn't continue because it was far too long. Essentially, we're following a world where a village has to sacrifice an animal every single year. This year, the village decides they're not going to sacrifice any animals because they need them to be able to survive the winter, and if they do that, they won't be able to survive. The Frost King says, well, then we're letting out evil. So he's kind of a bad person. As punishment, tells them they have to sacrifice one of the women in their village, and he's going to be the one to choose which one. He goes to the village and he sees our female main character and goes, you. And there's something special about her that he can't put his foot on, and as he takes her back to the castle to sacrifice her, he can't sacrifice her. And they have to like figure out why, what's special about her, what's calling to them. There was no chemistry in this, and the Frost King just gave me such an ick. And that was, I think, really bad. One of the first scenes when they first meet, he is talking about how ugly she is, essentially. He's saying that her best friend is way prettier and is like the prettiest girl in the town, and he can't pick her, blah, 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 so he picks her. And that gave me such an ick. Like, I want the man to be dating to think that I am beautiful, to tell me that I am the prettiest person they've ever laid their eyes on, even if I'm not. Like, lie to me. Please make me feel better about myself. But I also think that they should think that. Like, they should truly think that because of your personality, everything that you are gorgeous inside and out. And don't settle for anything less. And I felt like our main character was settling for less, and he gave me the ick. And once I had the ick, I just couldn't unget the ick. Similar to Bleed of Crystal Bloom, I also just got the ick from our main character. This is a Rapunzel-inspired story. We're following our main character who is kept in the castle. However, I thought it was going to be like captee, but she is the reason she's not leaving. Like, she's not really kept prisoner. She just refuses to leave the castle because of trauma. Her love interest, her like fated mate, saves her as a child when she's like 2 because he realizes that they're mates. Think Jacob and Renesmee from Twilight. And then takes care of her for the rest of her life. And he's essentially her father figure, and for me that just like really didn't work. A lot of other people don't have an issue with it, and so it could just be me reading more into things, but I just like really didn't like that aspect of it. I am fine with age gap, but I think when things become fatherly or like parental, that is really a big no for me that I've learned this year. So yeah, that is what didn't work for me in this story. I did think about continuing because people do say the next books get better, but I don't think I could ever get past that emotion of feeling the ick because of the like parental parenting part of it. Like, the world building, the story itself was not bad, but I just like I couldn't enjoy my time with the story because of my ick. So I don't think it would get better for me. So I've decided to not continue, and I really didn't like it because of that. I would love to know what your worst book of the year is. And if you would like to leave YouTube on a brighter speck of the internet, here's my best of the year list for you to go check out, because then you can hear me gush about books I loved instead of what I did in this video, which I think both are incredibly helpful. I love both videos. And if you made it all the way to the end of this video and you'd like to leave me an emoji just to say you were here, leave me your least favorite vegetable or fruit emoji in the comments down below, and have yourselves an absolutely remarkable day.